We're now seeing parents looking further afield and then considering, actually, we're closer to Birmingham, we're closer to Manchester, therefore we can invest. So the UK is beginning to open up from an educational landscape.
Hello to everyone watching and welcome to the Investment Insights podcast by Select Property. I'm Amber Furr and I'm here today with Richard Cullum, Country Director for the UK at BE Education. So firstly, hi Richard, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi Amber, thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
So to start us off then, tell us a bit about BE Education and the kind of support that you offer to international families looking to send their children to the UK for their education.
Sure. Okay. So BE is a well-established premium brand education consultancy company. And what we do is we work with these families to navigate this difficult situation of applying to universities and UK schools. We've been around for 20 years. We've got offices in the UK, Singapore, Japan, mainland China, Hong Kong, and we have representatives in Dubai as well. The way that we work with our families is really, really bespoke. And we typically will spend 2 to possibly 4 years with families, preparing them and getting them ready. And that's the way the process works at BE.
Okay, great. And why UK? So why in particular, Middle Eastern, Asian investors? What are some of the key reasons why they choose the UK for their child's education?
So there are 3 reasons why parents typically send their kids here. And the first one is academic excellence. The next one is sort of global perspectives. And then the third one is actually career. So let's go back to that first one. So when we're talking about premium institutions, you have your Oxford, your Cambridge, your Eton, your Harrow, your Wickham Abbey, Cheltenham Ladies College. These are all institutions that have stood the test of time through education. They're well-known world brands, and therefore they attract high-level students, high-level families, and the demand and the opportunities they get in these schools can then lead on to your Oxford, your Cambridge. And now parents are starting to look wider at US universities, European universities. So academic excellence is one. The other one is culture. The UK is renowned for having a good mix of cultures. Manchester University is one of those big ones. It's got 10,000 international students from 160 nationalities. And that culture and that breadth is also an attraction for families as well. I think with that culture and attraction, once the students get here, they kind of find their feet. They interact with people of their own cultures and nationalities. So parents kind of see that as a positive.
Yeah.
And then the third one is this sort of career. Parents are looking further down the line now. They're planning their children's education. And therefore, they can see there are huge opportunities for children to stay in the UK and continue their career. And this is where visas and everything come into play as well. But parents are now planning. And kids are now looking a lot further ahead than I ever did, or other people of my generation. It's now a lot more planned out.
Definitely. And what does that process typically look like? I know you said it can be kind of 2 to 4 years before the education actually starts. What would it typically look like when a parent approaches you, and at what stage of their child's education would that be at?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's start with the stage, because that's really important when you come to the UK. You've got to bear in mind that when you enter this UK system, you've already got a cohort of English families who know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
So what we do at BE is we make sure that we give you the correct timelines and that education continuum and journey, so we can fit you in at exactly the right point. So the first thing that we do is we interview the children and interview the family, and we find out exactly what they're looking for. All children are different, all families are different, and that's where the bespoke model comes in. So when we typically get a family coming to us, we'll sit down with them, we'll spend probably 2, 3, possibly 5 hours working with them and assessing their academic ability, and then building what we call this educational journey, this education continuum, and we map it out for them. Just going back slightly, when you join this journey of education, there are specific points where you really have to join or have to have done something at certain stages. And that's where families really need help. And that's hence why they come to BE.
Okay, and you see children and families right through from school, so boarding school in the UK, right through to university and beyond that. As you said, a lot of people kind of future plan for their careers in these cities as well. So it really is a wide life cycle, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, I can give you an example. I welcomed in a Hong Kong family to London about 3 weeks ago. They've got 2 children. One is 9 and one is 11. They've already made the decision that they want to come to the UK.
Okay.
They're now choosing their boarding schools. Their son has got his boarding school. He's going to be based in Cambridge. But for the daughter, it's a little bit more tricky. So we visited 5 schools. The family have now chosen. But on that process, they were starting to say to me, Richard, if we invested here in this house and this property, where would you recommend? What would you do? And this is where we started talking about Birmingham. And what it does is it suddenly opens these parents' eyes, because they suddenly feel that the UK is not just a place for education, it's a place for investment.
Yeah.
So the journey that this family are on is slightly different to some families, because they are very forward thinking.
Yeah.
They know that the kids want to go to Birmingham University.
It's very forward thinking.
And the kids have already said, I want to do engineering, I want to look at aeronautical design. So the children are quite advanced in that stage. But when we take it back to the parents, it breaks it down into 2 areas. We get a parent who has young children, and initially they'll come to the UK and they want to be near the kids.
Yeah.
And that typically means renting in a local area. But once they feel the kids are settled, then they start looking outwards and they're going, we can invest here. This is something for the future. And another example is where the children actually start to grow up, the parents actually go home, and the kids actually then go and live in the school holidays in the investment properties that the parents have bought.
Yeah.
And that is a trend that we've seen a lot of now.
Absolutely.
It's really positive for us as well.
Yeah, so I know with Select Property, obviously we're a UK property developer, but we have these global offices, Dubai, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and soon to be Saudi Arabia. And we see a huge kind of long-term trend of a lot of our international property investors are investing for their child's education, either, for the child to live in the property themselves, as you said, or as an investment property to help offset some of those tuition fees, accommodation costs. Or, in fact, as well, to come and stay in the property to visit the children, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So, there is a huge trend with that, with UK property investment from other countries. But what do you typically see, property investment-wise? What are some of the really key factors, and what do parents value the most when considering and weighing up which property to invest in for their children?
Yeah, good question. I think when you're dealing with your most prized commodity, which is your children, safety is your
Definitely,
number one.
Yeah.
And I think if we link in safety to location as well, and the reason I say that is that during COVID, we suddenly saw this extradition of children trying to escape the UK home.
Yeah.
And suddenly parents who'd put not so many measures in place in terms of where the child was living or what other facilities and properties they had, they couldn't be extracted or repatriated home. So there's this change in mindset that parents now have. They want to go to the bigger cities, even if their children's schools aren't there, because it means that they can then get out quickly if something happens. So safety is key, and that can be the physical building itself, but also, the nature, the neighborhood. They look into it. You'll be amazed what detail parents will go into to discover the neighborhood. But I think the building itself, CCTV, surveillance, concierge, private parking, secured access, even if it is, in a bigger block or a bigger apartment, they still want the safety, and they want somebody there 24/7, because that's typically what most of them have at home. Yeah. And then we look at transport, and we look at ease of getting to the airport, and all of these factors will sort of form their decision. I would say that location is less of an issue as they get older, because they're more mature, they're able to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of alluded to their community being such a key part as well of that university and graduate experience.
Yeah.
And I think the benefit with residential property in some of these, really key areas in Manchester, Birmingham, they sort of have these pockets within the cities that really kind of feel like a village.
Absolutely.
Huge aspect of community. In Select Property residential buildings, we really encourage the residents to see the wider amenity space as an extension of their apartment. So I think that full university and graduate experience that sort of extends far beyond just the 4 walls of the apartment is really important, we find, among parents as well.
Absolutely. And I think this is where, BE is learning as well. We're learning at the same time. We know what's available on the market now, and you guys are those market leaders when it's come together to put these properties together, considering all the needs of students. And it actually makes BE's job really easy. When we're talking about university, we don't have to worry about areas. We kind of know what the standard is, and that's where our clients are really beginning to trust us now.
Yeah.
They're beginning to see that actually there's more to investment property. It's not just an investment. It could be a lifestyle. It could even be, okay, my daughter or son can now stay in the UK because we have a base. And suddenly it's the lifestyle that then leads into it. So all of these decisions get put in this melting pot, and suddenly you get this creation of, I know what I'm going to do. And this is where planning is so important.
Absolutely. And I think that is so key, as you said, that lifestyle, which, for people, you mentioned the example of the Hong Kong family.
Yeah.
A lot of people sort of really love going to these cities to get a feel for it. And you can sort of start to imagine, even walk into the shop or the local GP or, how long the commute is to university. So, I think that is definitely key. And as you mentioned as well, Manchester and Birmingham have really high graduate retention rates.
Absolutely.
Birmingham in particular with Goldman Sachs, HSBC. So there is a real trend that we're seeing emerging with major blue chip employers, the kind of north shoring trend of moving out of the capital or expanding or having their headquarters out of the capital into these cities like Manchester and Birmingham. And I think with that is a kind of growing talent pool of graduates in these cities, and in fact a huge population expansion as well.
Yeah.
So I think that, this is all, there's such a synergy between the kind of educational aspect and, as you say, the property market as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think parents and students are now more knowledgeable about it's not just university. They're also, like you've mentioned, they're looking for work experience. They're looking for big companies that they can then sort of get involved in or work in firsthand. And that's another thing that we do at BE. We help students with that progression from university, even starting at GCSE year. Now we're starting to do work experience with Bloomberg and other sort of big companies, JP Morgan, Standard Chartered. We do some fashion houses as well.
Okay.
And we can see that students are now being more recruitable because they've had that experience. And when a university or a city has got these big blue chip companies there as well, that's another attraction. So all of these things, I've said it already, but all of these things added up, it's really positive for students. And I can see that there is a trend of moving away from the capital. And I think that's really positive because what it does is it detracts from the rest of the UK is not an educational hub. In fact, it's the opposite. We're now seeing parents looking further afield and then considering, actually, we're closer to Birmingham, we're closer to Manchester, therefore we can invest. So the UK is beginning to open up from an educational landscape, definitely.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of north shoring trend as well, we're really seeing among international property investors. I think, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of people would just associate the UK as being London.
Yeah.
And we're kind of only interested in London as a property investment and as a potential, university city for their children.
Yeah.
But I think definitely now that, there's that sort of affordability ceiling, rental yields, if they were to rent out the property, nowhere near, what they would be in Manchester and Birmingham in London now. So I think definitely, and of course the capital's amazing, not to knock it as a city. We're here now. It's one of the best cities in the world. But I think certainly for investment and also education, there are, other huge players on the map.
Absolutely. And don't forget that when students go to boarding school, they don't need to come out every day.
Yeah.
They're there at school. So that gives parents this increased field of vision where they can actually go and look further afield for these properties. There is one student I want to bring to mind. He's just popped into my head because he started when he was 9 years old at a prep school and he boarded full time. He flew in from mainland China and mum flew with him. They based themselves in Oxford because that's where his prep school was. He then transgressed into a senior school near Oxford. During that period, mum actually purchased a property in London and he used to go back during weekends. Now, in his last 3 years, mum recognised that actually the city was great. It gave him all the vibrance and what have you. But he actually said, Mum, I now want to go to university in Birmingham. They have now purchased another property in Birmingham, which then gives the family increased options. Dad has since started to work in London more. Mum has relocated part of her business here. And I spoke to the family about 2 weeks ago, and they just said, it's just given us this new outlook.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's not only that, it's generational,
Yeah.
because he's got older siblings who've actually had children and they're starting to use it. So it's almost like being passed down already through generations, even though this student's quite young.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm based in our Dubai office, and I think a really key trend that we see, particularly among Middle Eastern investors, and obviously, as you say, Asian investors as well, is that kind of securing future wealth for future generations. I think it's a really important driver for UK property investment at the moment.
Absolutely. And it is something that we work with quite a large number of family offices as well.
Okay.
And it's something we're being asked quite a lot. What about this generational wealth? How could our education opportunities sit alongside generational wealth in terms of looking at investment and properties? So it's conversations are coming more to the floor now.
Yes.
I think people are having growing confidence. There is a lovely difference between our Asian community and then our sort of Dubai clientele as well. We've noticed that our Dubai clients are very much focused on looking after family as well. So it's not for investment originally.
Yeah.
It is just for, I want my kid to be safe. I want them to be here. And that's where they start. But what I love about it is that the kid's always at the center of the decision.
Yes. Yeah.
Investment comes as a subsidiary, an important one, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's the child is at the center. And that's where BE really kind of fit into that, because that's all we try and do.
Okay, yeah, so that's really interesting. And do you see any differences with Asian families in particular about kind of their approach to education and property investment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's two sort of major differences. The first is the fact that our Asian families typically want a new build.
Okay.
They want something that's new, it's been purpose built. It's also kind of more akin to what they're used to. When I visit families in Shanghai on a one-to-one basis, and then I see the properties that they want in the UK, there's so much similarity.
Yeah.
I can see that. And the second bit is they're more data-driven.
Okay.
So they want to know about yields, and they want to
Yes.
know about return on investments, and they want to know about history.
Yeah.
So they're very data analytical, which I think is good. Obviously, the trends do buck and change, so sometimes that's quite difficult to give them a great answer, but that's where we ask you for support.
Yeah.
And then Middle Eastern families, it's all about security.
Yes.
And that's what they're really focused on. The build in the area, that's really important. But I think if they've got family nearby, sometimes that draws them in as well. That family environment is so important to them.
Yes.
But ultimately, they both share the same thing. They want the kids in the middle, kids at the center of the decision. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think with this sort of purpose-built residential property, as Select Property develop, we kind of take learnings from every development that we create. And as you said, kind of putting the resident at the center of that experience and that lifestyle, and making sure that, safety, amenity, quality are really paramount.
Absolutely.
So what kind of advice would you give to international families who, maybe their children are younger, or maybe they're about to approach university age?
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give as a starting point for exploring that journey with UK education?
I think the first thing is you've got a plan.
Yeah.
And you've got to start early. And the trend that we're now seeing is, with the majority of our families, is that we're working with children younger and younger. I'll let you into a secret at the moment. We're dealing with a student who is 7 years old.
Wow.
And we're working with them on a really, really light touch.
Yeah.
They've got 2 weeks with us. They've got a little bit of reading. They've got a little bit of comprehension. And then they've got so much fun. So we take them out individually. We go to Natural History Museum. We take them to various restaurants. We do culture and etiquette as well.
Okay.
So we kind of just nurture them through. We're not into just tuition. That doesn't work for us. But we are seeing a trend of younger students coming through. And the reason being is that the demand for places is still strong, despite the sort of the issues around VAT in schools. We're still seeing there's a big demand for the high level schools that we've got. And I would say that typically, if you looked at a UK family, they're planning 2-3 years out. So when the children are 10 or 11, that's when they're making the decision about what happens at senior school, which starts at 13.
Right, okay.
So you've got that 3-year spectrum. And then there are other convenient points along the way, such as end of GCSEs, when we see quite a big change where students have actually blossomed being in the UK, and their GCSE results are fantastic. And parents go, we'd like to go up a gear. We'd like to go to another better school that's going to have different aspects. It may be a specialism. It could be drama. It could be music. It could be sport, whatever. but they reevaluate where their child is. We also see the fact that parents come along and say, hey, we're looking for this particular university and this particular course. And we kind of work backwards and say, okay, if you really want to get there, this is what you're going to have to do. What we try and make sure with the students is that they're not a name on a piece of paper. They're a true individual. Schools want individuals, but schools want individuals that are going to give everything, not just academic results. So part of the work we do with BE is catching you early and making sure that we take you on the journey and we say, your academics are really important, but you've got to be able to express things in a different way. You've got to be able to construct a good argument. You've got to be able to debate with us. You've got to be able to think off your feet. And these skills are constantly available to the kids in the UK school because that's the style of teaching. In other cultures, in other countries, that isn't the style.
Yeah.
So children slightly get caught out. And that's why I say planning's important. Longevity. And it can be the question whereby we come together and then we go apart for a little bit and then we come back. And that's how we work best with our parents.
Okay. Yeah, I really like the sort of bespoke approach. And I think that's why when we first had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, we found so much synergy.
Absolutely.
Because, no journey is the same, no family's expectations or journey is the same.
Yeah. And
it's very much the same for us. Of course, all investors have a completely different set of circumstances, requirements, and plans for their investment. Are there any really common kind of misconceptions or mistakes that maybe some families make or assume when they're entering this education or property investment journey in the UK?
Yes, I think there is one misconception. I think I've seen families battle or struggle a little bit with managing properties remotely.
Yeah.
I sometimes find myself being sort of pulled in to try and help. And part of that may be due to language or understanding, but that is where we actually need your help, and that's where it's really good to have somebody who we know and trust. And parents also, really value that. We can act as an intermediary for language support if needed. But, I was going to say something stupid there. I was going to say, you don't go to the butcher's for a haircut.
Yeah, you don't.
you go to the right people for the right things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we find as well that people who might be new to UK property investment from overseas, they can also think initially, would I want to sort of manage the property myself or find a tenant myself? But I think that particularly with Middle East and Asian investors, we found that our end-to-end property management investment experience is really attractive. They don't have to kind of maintain the property. Obviously, they're not there, but they don't have to, organise a third party or employ somebody to go and look after the property.
Yeah.
Everything is kind of managed end to end. And if they did want to rent out the property for a period of time, maybe they're investing really early in advance and the child won't be living there, then we can also manage that too. So I think that sort of hands-off, hassle-free approach, which, as you said, is really bespoke to each investor, is really attractive.
Absolutely. And I think we've learned through time working with these families that some want to be completely hands-off.
Yeah.
And we respect that, that is their family decision. We've got others who are slightly more savvy and want to try it, because they've done it in their own country or they've got a little bit of experience. So you've got to assess each person as they come through the door. And I think that's where you and I probably have the same approach. And I think that's where that's really good. Really positive.
Definitely. And do you find any other kind of common misconceptions or?
Okay. I think another one is that parents kind of wait and they hold off until the child has either got a place at their school or their university, thinking that the process is quite quick and you can do it really quickly.
Yeah.
And I always say to them, look, it's like choosing a school. First of all, you have to go and visit.
Yeah.
Because when you get into a school, you will get this either Harry Potter feeling of magic and mystique, or you might turn up and go, it's not quite right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same with the property.
Yeah.
And we encourage all our clients to say, look, while you're in the UK and we're taking you around schools, come and visit with us. Come and see some of these properties, because I think you will know the same. You go into a property and you get a feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a feel you can't describe.
Yeah.
And we always encourage parents to come along there. So, don't wait. If you've got these plans in place and you know that the students are going to be in the UK, start looking. That would be the advice I would give to them.
I think as well with our investment model, and we find that what's quite common among our international investors is they will buy a property off plan,
Yeah,
which
okay.
of course then gives them 2 to 3 years before it completes. And that might align really well with the child moving in. So, and I think that obviously gives them the benefit of kind of having a tangible asset working for them in the background as they approach that year of study, giving them equity in the property and, of course, the capital growth over the build period. So there really are a lot of benefits to that, and we do see it quite often. Of course, the only issue with off-plan is that they can't come and visit the property beforehand.
Yeah.
But what they can do is, with a credible developer, whoever they go for, is to go and see some of the completed developments.
Absolutely.
I would 100% recommend that always, is to go and have a look at some of the completed projects, get a feel for the brands as well, the residential brands, and feel if that aligns for you as a student or a parent.
Absolutely. And I think this is where, education is more than just a school, a investment, a house, everything. Education is a whole broad. You're working with parents, and I find that that's where BE is great. We love doing this. You take a family around, and actually at the end of those 5 days, you sit back and you just have a debrief with them and say, right, what have you learned? And the amount of information that you get from parents about, I didn't realize this was an opportunity. And that's something that they always say, oh, I didn't realize I could, this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
But like we said before, the children are always at the center. And if something changes, I still think the investment is something that they're still going to consider. Even if their child isn't right for UK or they're not ready for that bit yet, we can still start the conversations, because I think parents are now open to that. Previously, it was de facto no, but we're getting there.
So what would you say to parents that, are thinking or might feel a bit put off by investing in one city for fear that their child might end up in a different UK city?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question, because I think sometimes parents get so fixated on, I want my child to go to this school or this university.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'd say that there are a huge number of educational institutions that will suit your child. But also, if you're considering all of these, don't use the school as the pinnacle. Actually use your potential investment as the pinnacle and work away from that. Because what you will find is the connectivity, the transport in the UK is really quick and easy.
Yeah.
And therefore, you could have 4 or 5 schools, but your investment property, be it Birmingham or Manchester, that could be 2 hours, could be an hour and a half, could be 3 hours. But it's quite easy to get to. Nowhere in the UK is far.
Yeah.
I always laugh when my families come over and I say, right, we're going to go from Heathrow and we're going to go to Bath. And they go, oh my gosh, it's so far. And I go, you just traveled 8,000 miles, it's not far.
Yeah.
But once they see the connectivity between it, I think that breaks the barriers as well.
Yeah.
So my advice is, don't use the school as the pinnacle, use the investment potential as the pinnacle and work out at it from there.
Perfect. And I think especially with HS2 coming into effect, will massively, make the UK even smaller, won't it? Okay, great. And just before we finish, are there any other closing comments or considerations for parents watching?
Absolutely. I think we've talked a lot today about planning and, the longevity, but I think there is an opportunity as well. At the moment within the UK, private schools have got some good spaces, and it is sometimes a great opportunity to just jump in 2 feet first and take that leap of faith. Come to BE, let us talk to you about your children. And we will be transparent and honest with you. If we feel as though your child is great and would have a great opportunity, it then almost kind of asks the next question of you as parents. If you make that decision and the child goes, what could you then do? Do you want to go and have a look at investment opportunities? Do you want to go and have a look at this? So although planning is great, sometimes everybody's up for an adventure.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's really important to know that it's there are other opportunities out there. At the moment, if you want good schools, the opportunity is there, and go and seize it, because it's really important for your kids' education.
Okay, so planning is ideal, but if you haven't, it might not be too late.
Absolutely.
There are options.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well with Select Property, that is something that we do see. If there has been a last minute kind of enrolment, whether it's school or university, it's not always off plan for us. So we do also have completed opportunities, resales. So yeah, it goes back to that point of very bespoke experience for everyone.
Yeah. And I think the final thing to say is, if you don't ask, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
And that's where, knowledge is key, early engagement, but have a conversation, speak to friends, speak to experts, but find out more. Be inquisitive, be curious. That's what we tell children. And as adults,
Yeah.
sometimes we're scared to do it. So go and be curious. And coming to the UK and actually seeing it firsthand is so important. So yeah.
Perfect, Richard. Thank you so much. That's been such a valuable conversation, and I'm sure it's been really helpful for lots of parents and families considering UK.
Thank you very much. It's been good. It's been a pleasure to share some knowledge and talk with you a bit further.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And to everybody watching, thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe on your platform of choice. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.